Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and today I'm going to discuss with you a very interesting topic which happened to American Airlines, which probably hurts the reputation of the air carrier as much as possible. I would call it even a racist incident or even accident which happened on board of the airplane. So I would consider it as even a mental injury, but probably they're gonna make lots of the money from that airline, suing them in the court. So let's watch this video for you to understand everything.
Filed lawsuit. 3 black men are suing American Airlines. They allege company employees appeared to remove all of them from a flight over a complaint about body odor. First on CBS Mornings, the men are telling their story to ARC.
Body odor, she said, is the smell. So they were kicked out from the aircraft, from the flight, by the crew because they smelled bad, as the cabin crew, from what I understood, thought. Let's check out more about the story.
Chris Van Cleet.
We're the only ones getting taken off the plane. Look at this.
This video at the center of a newly filed lawsuit against American Airlines appears to show a number of black men after they've been removed from a flight allegedly due to a complaint about offensive body odor.
So this is discrimination.
The lawsuit claims as Flight 832 from Phoenix to New York was finishing boarding in January, American employees removed 8 black men from the plane. They were not traveling together, weren't seated next to each other, did not know each other, and appeared to be the only black men on the flight, according to the suit filed.
So as you may see, there are more than 3 persons. So 3 persons decided to sue the airline, which I would recommend to every one of those persons who were kicked out from the airplane to do. So basically they've took all of the black persons on board and say to them, you're not flying because we think you smell bad. It is the absolutely crazy thing which I thought would never happen in the United States of America, but indeed it happened, and let's continue listening the story.
Filed early this morning.
As I got my things and walked to the front of the plane and made a left to the jet bridge, I noticed that there was 7 other black men, and that kind of was like, okay, what's happening here?
So 7 other black persons who are not interconnected in any sort of the way rather than their race, so they didn't know each other, they were kicked out from the airplane to the bridge which is connecting the terminal building to the airplane itself.
Plaintiffs Emmanuel Jean Joseph, Alvin Jackson, and Xavier Veal, Flight 832 was a connection. They'd taken an earlier flight from Los Angeles without issue.
It was just black men. So I started freaking out. I pulled out my phone to record everything.
At any point, did somebody from American say to any of you that you had an offensive odor?
No.
The lawsuit claims over the course of about an hour, the men were kept in the jetway and then moved to the gate area where they were told they'd be rebooked on another flight to New York later that day.
So what's the point of taking them out from the airplane if they're getting rebooked for the other flight? So they're not banned from the airline. They were not kept in custody by police for the wrong behavior. They were wearing good clothes. They were nice guys actually, but somehow flight attendants thought that they smell bad. So probably even a single person thought something, that someone smells bad. He reported to the captain, and the captain decided, okay, we're gonna disembark those persons, whoever those are. It is the worst decision possibly taken by the personnel of the airline, and I'll complain and sue airline myself, but in my case obviously it's hard to justify the racial concern, but here I think it was definitely out there.
And alleges an American employee indicated the complaint about offensive body odor had come from a white male flight attendant. A gate agent seen in the video at one point seems to agree race was a factor in the men getting pulled off the flight.
Just because of the color of my skin. Okay.
I do not disagree.
But when another flight to New York couldn't be found, they were put back on the same plane.
Had to go back.
So what's the logic of everything of that? They were kicked out from the airplane. They were held in the gate area, and then there is no any flight for them to continue their journey, and they were put back to the airplane. And all of the other persons sitting in the airplane, they were watching this picture, like black men were taken out from the passenger jet, and then they were brought back on their seats. and they were sitting in random places, and there was no any complaint about the smell. Oh my god, my friends, I'm out of words about this case. It's unimaginable. Whew.
On the plane with everybody looking at us, for me, very uncomfortable. Everybody staring at me. Me and all the other black people on the plane were just taking off.
I knew that as soon as I get on that plane, a sea of white faces were going to be looking at me and blaming me for their late flight of an hour.
Their lawyer, Sue Huta, says American declined to give her clients any answers about what happened in Phoenix.
It's almost inconceivable to come up with an explanation for that other than the color of their skin, particularly since they didn't know each other, they weren't sitting near each other. It seems fairly apparent that race was part of this dynamic.
The lawsuit cites other recent incidents where passengers have alleged being discriminated against by American and a 2017 NAACP travel advisory urging members not to fly the airline. It was lifted about 8 months later.
We were discriminated against. The entire situation was racist.
Do you think if you were anything other than a black man, this would not have happened?
If I was a white person, it probably wouldn't have happened.
I think they would have walked past like the other white passengers that were there.
CBS legal analyst Ricky Kleeman.
The plaintiffs may really have no interest in money, and they may have a sincere interest in making a public statement about racial discrimination by a major airline.
Is this kind of case a tough one to win at trial?
The question at trial really is about what are the protocols of American Airlines. And they better have some, and they better have done something with these particular employees in terms of discipline after this action.
Well, actually, guys, there are the protocols. Like, I was flying as a captain, and there was the number of the violations, like if passengers, for example, damn drunk, if they do not behave well, and if they potentially might cause the problem concerning the aviation safety. Obviously, the captain should remove the passengers, should remove the particular passenger. Captain has absolute right for it. How does the captain obtain the initial information? Obviously from the flight attendant. Captain might take even the decision without seeing the passenger because captain is busy in the cockpit, for example, because captain is kind of busy in the cockpit, and if flight attendant comes, says, okay, there is the drunk passenger, we need to remove him or her, yeah, obviously I would agree with that. I did it just once, by the way, in my career. I removed the drunk passengers that were absolutely drunk, like, yeah, could be drunk just a little, so it's more or less okay. But if you completely drunk, like, no, I remove those persons because then the airplane flies, the altitude in the cockpit is around 2,600 meters, something like that. So for the drunk passenger, for the drunk body of the passenger, let's say, the effect could be kind of devastating. So there is the possibility for us to land somewhere on a tunnel because the particular person would feel unwell. So it's better to remove that risk, eliminate it completely on the ground, and to remove that passenger. I also remember one of the case in one of my last flights, then I was told that there will be a disabled person on board. It was a female and she was totally polarized because of some sort of the sickness. She couldn't breathe on her own, so she has some sort of the batteries for the pump, which supplied her body with some of the air. So then I saw this passenger, immediately asked how many batteries we have and whether she's accepted to be carried on board on the airplane. Well, they gave me some sort of the papers from the doctor, but those were very old. My airline called me and said everything is agreed, everything is fine, but the personnel of the airport said that no, Captain, she is not fine, she just had a crisis in the gate, she was barely breathing, and I asked how many batteries we have for how many hours, and the relatives of the female said that it will be enough for just one flight. But what in case the weather deteriorates at destination because the forecast wasn't really nice? What if we'd have to go to the alternate airport? She would not have batteries to drive that pump which pushes the air into her lungs. So I refuse to take her on board, and yes, it's better to avoid, because if you take that passenger on board and she, for example, dies, because relatives will say, okay, we can accept if she dies on board, but they may tell you that they do not give you the paper. So the prosecutor will ask you, after all, in a court, why did you take her, Captain? Because the papers from the doctor are strange, and you see, they didn't have enough batteries for you if you would go to alternate airfield. So this happened because of you. You're guilty. You'll go to jail. So never mess up with that responsibility. And the cases which are important for the aviation safety. But here, none of that was a factor. Just a bad smell.
American Airlines tells CBS News it takes all claims of discrimination very seriously and says in a statement, our teams are currently investigating the matter as the claims do not reflect our core values or our purpose of caring for people. The lawsuit seeks unspecified damages. Nate?
Chris, thank you. Looks like American Airlines has some explaining to do.
Some explaining to do. You know, all of us sympathize with the jobs that flight attendants have. It's a slippery slope when you think of the amount of power that a single flight attendant might have. I've seen things go amiss on flights, not necessarily American Airlines, but where just someone says the wrong thing at the wrong time, but it's just a comment.
Right.
And it escalates
then
to
they flex
you're
their
getting
power on you.
Exactly, and you get thrown off a plane.
Those fellas are going to own that airline by the end of this.
We'll see.
Did you understand what this guy says? Those fellows could own their airline if they want, if they win the lawsuit case. So the case went, let's say, partially viral all across the media, and American Airlines employees have been put out on leave for their involvement in an incident in that particular case. The airline say that we are holding those involved accountable, including removing team members from service. So definitely, as a journalist say, the power of the flight attendant is kind of high. He or she is out to decide whether the person is, let's say, fit to fly. And by feeling this power, I can decide whether he or she flying on my plane or not. Well, some persons, flight attendants, just do not behave well. Let's be honest with that. So just give someone power and you'll see the true face of a person. And here they have quite a decisive power, and it depends on them whether they're okay with the person or not. It is sad, actually. And for example, if there is the conflict between passenger and flight attendant calls police comes, and usually they do not listen to the passenger, they take passenger out, that's it. I want to tell you about the case that I was flying for Ukraine Airlines on ATR, and there was one flight attendant. He was experienced, but he was so tired of his job and he wanted to go away. He wasn't smiling with the passengers, he spoke with them in a very harsh way, I would say. So he was apt to retire from the airline. And once we returned back to our original airport because the weather in our destination was kind of terrible, and one of the passengers just refused to stand from his seat because he said like, I will fly on your plane to destination, I need to get there, so sit here until you take me to destination. So instead of, resolve the situation, that particular flight attendant decided to argue with the person, and the passengers start to argue with the flight attendant, and they start to use the bad words against each other. Then I exit the cockpit. I saw the real fight between flight attendant and the passenger. Well, then they both saw me, the fighting was already over, and the passenger decided to go to the bus. And by the way, other passengers were waiting him downstairs in the bus. So the flight attendant should de-escalate, not de-escalate the situation. And here's just a huge embarrassment of the American Airlines and the crew of that particular flight. So yes, obviously it's the right thing to remove the crew from the duties, and I guess that there should be an internal investigation done to identify the particular person responsible for this escalation, which led to the massive racial discrimination event. And the airline partially confirms that we fell short commitments, failed our customers. They're very disappointed about the case, but it's too late. It's too late. It should have been prevented well before. And as we know that in a separate incident in 2017, the NASCP warned black travelers to avoid the airlines, citing the pattern of disgraceful and discriminatory behavior as well as the corporate culture of racial insensitivity and possible racial bias. So as I say, it's not the first case with this particular airline. And I don't know if you remember, the case happened to the other airline, United Airlines, with doctor who was bitten on board and dragged away from the airplane by security services because the airline sold more tickets for the particular flight, so it was overbooking, and the airline decided to take the particular person out in this harsh way. Let's listen to the story.
Now with that ABC News exclusive, the doctor at the center of that shocking airplane incident is now speaking out about it for the first time. He sat down with Amy, and Amy, he says that really changed his life.
It certainly did, Robin. Dr. David Dow, who's from Vietnam, had no idea that video went viral at first and says he actually doesn't even remember being taken off the plane, only waking up in the hospital with no idea that he'd become a national headline.
It was the horrifying viral moment seen around the world.
Oh my God!
2 years ago, Dr. David Dow, forcibly removed from an oversold United Airlines flight by aviation security officers after refusing to give up his seat to make room for United employees.
No, I'm not going.
Today, Dow speaking publicly.
Moreover, for United employees, for the employees of particular airline.
Publicly about the incident for the first time.
Have you watched the video?
Later on.
What's that like to watch?
I just cried.
You can hear you screaming in pain.
I don't know, I just cried.
Dow suffered a concussion, broken nose, and 2 missing teeth. He says he was heading home to open a free clinic for veterans when the aviation security officers first approached him.
Do you remember how quickly things escalated?
I think very fast. I think very quick.
Were you expecting it to get physical at any point?
No, not at all.
I know your daughter spoke out at a press conference.
What happened to my dad should have never happened to any human being, regardless of the circumstance.
What was that like for you as a father to see her standing up for you and talking about what happened?
I just cried.
Yeah.
Later on, I watched TV. Oh yeah, I just cried.
United CEO Oscar Munoz sparking further uproar when he called Dow disruptive and belligerent in a leaked email to employees. He appeared on GMA to apologize.
This will never happen again on a United Airlines flight.
3 weeks later, Dow reached an undisclosed settlement with the airline. Dow had instantly become the source of national headlines, his personal life under a microscope, including a once temporarily suspended medical license.
How did you handle all of that attention?
Get the point, I have to hide him.
Could you go to work? Could you leave the house?
No. I stay for months in the house.
Now retired Dow says his faith and charity work helped him through all the unwanted attention. And today, he can see the good that came from the experience.
Well, the most important thing is the accident turned out the positive way. Airline business willing to change policy.
You forgiven?
Yes.
The airline business willing to change policy, but it happened long time ago. This interview was recorded 5 years ago, and we don't see the change of the policy of the airlines. They may drag you away or just kick you out from the airliner if, for example, in the case with American Airlines, you are black.
What would you say to those men who pulled you off the plane if they were sitting here?
I'm not angry with them. They have the job to do, they have to do. If they don't do it, they may lose a job. So I'm not angry with them or anything like this. That's their job.
I would be so angry if they broke my nose and bitten out some of my teeth, so I would obviously sue them for that.
Now, we reached out to United. The airline sent us a statement saying, in part, Flight 3411 was a defining moment for United Airlines, and it is our responsibility to make sure we as a company continue to learn from that experience. I asked Dr. Dow if he would do it all over again, if he would change anything, and he said things happened the way they were supposed to happen. And the change that's occurred has been, worth it, although it was a traumatic experience. He said he wouldn't change anything.
And now he's devoted his life to charity work?
He has. He has helping veterans. That's his, he said veterans plucked him out of the the sea from Vietnam, and it's his duty to give back.
Great cause.
Yeah, I'm happy about the guy because he is alive and he is not angry at all. Well, probably he sued the airline. I didn't dig deep into the topic, but obviously he got the attention, and attention led to positive things like, for example, in his case, charity. So guys, just tell me in the comment section below, what do you think about those two of the incidents, especially the fresh one with American Airlines? Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but those things happen in real life. Okay, that's all for now. See ya.